performance webinar series. We're going to be going through today's program and talking about a lot of different areas of how to build and staff for accelerated growth. And we're all experiencing challenges, difficulties in the current market. We're all experiencing the major shift from a refinance-based environment to now one that requires us to be much more focused on purchase. As you're probably aware and experiencing, that is much more labor-intensive than it is to market in an environment that's heavily focused on refinance business versus purchase. So as Coach Stephanie shared just a few minutes ago, we're going to be going deep into that topic today, how to build a high-performing team, how to be looking ahead to build capacity to handle the workload and volume that you are generating as an originator as you build your practice. Of course, if you're new to our series, this is a weekly series that we've been doing since last October. The focus of this entire program is built around this concept of creating real value for our clients as much as we can and provide a community of learning where we gather on a regular basis to share ideas and concepts and work through the challenges that you are all facing. And I don't know of anybody better on our team to share a lot of these concepts, especially when it comes to the area of team building and strategic staff growth than Coach Stephanie. Stephanie's background is organizational leadership and marketing background right out of college, built several companies of her own, has been with the Maximum Acceleration coaching team, and recently completed her Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership, and has really taken a heart and become an expert coach with literally thousands of clients over the last, almost 10 years that we've been doing this together, Stephanie, really focusing on how to help teams become good, strong leaders. And so I can't think of anybody better to talk on the topic of how to build and accelerate the growth of your team than Coach Stephanie. So with that being said, you can, by the way, you should be able to access and control slide movement at this point, Stephanie, so take it and run with it, and it's all yours.
Okay, well, thanks. I always cringe when you are telling people about me because it sounds so much bigger than I feel. So just to let everybody know while we're on the call, again, please, this is a big overview of team building and how to hire, and you're all going to have very specific issues, I think, within your own company, your own organization, and I want you to write those down. I just spoke with somebody yesterday, actually, for the first time, who has a team and is very scattered and is very worried because he is in a small market in Northern California and doesn't really know how to delegate, doesn't even know what he does. And a lot of times when we're really working with delegation and hiring and organizing our team, we use the blanket statement of time management. I'm too busy to do this. And I'm going to tell you that getting the right team, hiring the right person, delegating to the team you have, and letting everybody know their moving parts in this loan business is going to be one of the secrets to you succeeding and staying in business this fall. So this is a really important topic. We'll probably touch on it again later on this year, maybe going even more into more detail. So I want to start off by, hold on a second, I'm trying to get my screen to change. Do I have access to it, Eric?
You have control. Yeah, there's about a 3 to 5 second delay, so just be careful not to double click.
I was getting tracers on my arrow. Okay, so note-taking suggestions. This is with any of our conferences. Some of it's going to be really topical to you, some of it's not. I really suggest you take notes on things that we say, even if it's just a word that hits you. Later on, reference those notes so that you can utilize the stuff that we have. You know, you're here for a reason. Make sure you're asking for clarity. These are free webinars, but free is only how much value you get out of them. It was created to help you. Make sure you interact with us on the call or take the notes and the information you get and go back and do something with them. That's where the true power of these webinars come from. Now, teams come in a lot of different sizes. Some of the people on the call may be managing a large team or a small team. Some of this is very obvious. Get a small office team of 1 to 2 people if you have 1 assistant, or even if it's just a loan officer and a processor. You guys are still a team. You need to handle that like a team. If it gets up to 3 to 5 people, you really have to have very clear job descriptions, very clear loan processes, who's in charge of what steps, Who talks to who takes care of the initial lead, who takes the application, who's running CU, who's handling post-closing, who handles the database. As your team gets even larger, I have somebody who has their own production, they handle a region, and they handle a division, all in one person. So they've got little teams inside of a large team of 11 to 20 people, and we're talking about layers of team organization. So keep in mind, if you have a big team, you're going to have to break down the components even more. And some of the things I'm going to be talking about will apply to you, but you may need to duplicate them for the different sizes of your team. Again, if that doesn't make any sense to you, please either send me a question separately or post to the chat section here on the webinar. All the questions that you ask are going to be able to help other people who may have that question and not asking it. So here's the high-level overview. It's the 5 steps to building teams. Again, going over the different team sizes, shapes, it kind of needs its own webinar. I'd be happy to talk to any one of you about your particular situation and how you might be able to format a plan to either hire to fill your team or to organize the team you have. That's what we do here in the coaching company. Next, we want to talk about the 5 key concepts that go into the team. I cannot stress this enough. You need job descriptions. Even if it's 2 people or 3 people, everybody needs to know what their job is. And I'm not talking about a 10-page job description. You come in the morning, you open your desk drawer. I'm talking about the workflow. What is that person responsible for? I can't tell you the people who have giant teams who don't know who orders the office equipment and who gets the coffee and the paper. And I mean, there's not maybe an office manager, but Sue always did it, and she's the head processor, and she manages that. You need to get your arms around what everybody's doing. If you hire someone, prior to hiring them, you need to know what you're going to assign them. You have to create a job description for a transaction coordinator before you get that person hired. That job description is going to be part of the ad that you put out in order to hire them. When you bring them in, those are the job skills that you're going to interview them for. When you bring them on the team, that's what their understanding of what they're supposed to do is going to be. That's how you hold them accountable. They need to know exactly what they're supposed to do day in and day out. This is what they're getting paid for. Without that clarity, you're going to have somebody come into your office day one, and you're going to be working hard to try and fill their time. You're going to work confused. They're going to work confused. I can't tell you how many people have quit on my people because they didn't get a clear job description. The business was disorganized. They felt they were underutilized. They felt that they were not being communicated with. It's a really hard environment to work in without that job description. So that's probably the first thing you should start with when working on building your team, growing your team, or organizing it. Next is delegation. Again, this goes back to a really busy loan officer. A lot of us are feeling the squeeze where the refis have kind of fallen out of the business. And there's still a little bit of refi business here and there. But when it comes down to I'm trying to change my business and go back to the purchase model, and I'm trying to get out of the office more, and I'm trying to do all these things, and I'm starting to get panicked because my business is a third of what it was a month ago. You have to see what you're doing that you need to hand off to somebody else. Really go through your day and map out all the things you need to stop doing in order to go out and get more business. And all those things need to be delegated. I'm going to go through this a little bit more as we step through the different key concepts. Communication. Part of keeping somebody hired, part of your team becoming more successful, and probably one of the most important things that you do with your own clients is communicate. So we'll go over the process of communication in weekly staff meetings, if not daily staff meetings, here in a couple of slides. Competition and culture. You've got to understand that there are people who are going to try to hire out from under you, and you have to understand the culture in your office. Do you scream at people when you get under stress? Is the processor going to not communicate because they're one of those people who just isn't really open to hearing new ideas? You've got to understand the culture that's created and change the culture or work within it. But ignoring that you have a culture can really undermine your ability to hire somebody and keep them employed and keep the whole team working well. And then there's also managing managers. Some of the people on this call have managers that are maybe not working best with you. You need to understand how to help your team work even when you have a manager who's trying to manage your team. That might be a really tough concept, but again, if you have questions about any of this, write it down. I want to try and help individuals learn how to manage themselves and their team while working with another manager. Okay, so we touched our 5 key concepts. Let's jump into the job description. Every single person in your team and in your office needs to have their own job description. Obviously, if you're a one-man shop and you're sending stuff into the company processor, your job description is do everything yourself. So I don't think we need to write one out for you specifically. But when you're trying to hire somebody, whether it's an assistant, a transaction coordinator, maybe your own processor, you need to know what are all the activities of your business, and then break those down into what you want that person to do. And I'll give you an example. If you're a loan officer and you're trying to maintain your database, but you really are not good with details, and you're also trying to get out and meet with your core group of realtors and add new realtors to that list, and you have people who are calling in, and the processor is giving you loans, you need to follow up on conditions, all that stuff is hard to manage at one time. What you need to do is say, I shouldn't be entering my lead information into the database. Okay, that's going to go on the job description for the assistant. Enter all new lead information into the database. Okay, can that person talk to your client? Okay, then that's the next job description for that new assistant transaction coordinator. Call on all files to fulfill conditions. Have them interact with the processor. Okay, interact with processor. All this stuff needs to be written down in detail so that you can take those activities off your plate so that you can start doing the things you need to do to keep your business successful. Then as you write down all the things you do, who's responsible for them? My favorite thing to work on when I first work with a client is a loan process. I think Tim Burdine was famous for having 72 steps in his loan process. In that, he had the senior loan officer, which was him. He had his processor and 2 junior loan officers. 4 people on his team. Back in 2003, they closed 665 deals because every single name was next to every single step in the process. Everybody knew exactly what they needed to do, and they were responsible for that step. So if you have a team, you need to get your loan process from the minute a lead comes in the door all the way through post-close. Who touches it and when? That's going to make the difference in marketing to all the referral partners attached to deals and really work out, flesh out, where's your responsibility. And it helps you hold your staff accountable. If any of you need a copy of the Tim Burdine Perfect Loan Process, I can send that to you as well. Does every team member know their role? Did you have a meeting with your staff, your team members, and actually tell them, here's what you're accountable for? Did they agree to it? Did they sign off on it? Did that go in their file? You need to be very clear to them what their role is, and you need to have them repeat it back to you so that when something happens, the whole team gets together and you say, hey, this happened during our loan process. What happened here? What fell apart? And keep working on perfecting communication and accountability. Had the role activities for each team member been communicated to them? Again, going back to regular meetings with your team and letting them know exactly what their responsibilities are. Again, if you have any questions about job description, it's not complicated, but I think sometimes that's why job descriptions are not done. People think, well, that's an assumption that they should know what they need to do. You can't just assume people know what to do. Now, a daily activities exercise is, we do have a free team design worksheet that comes with the webinar, and I can send that to anybody that wants it. I'll have my contact information up here soon. A daily activity sheet can help you figure out what you do all day, how you get the return on investment on all the activities, and how do you decide what you want to delegate to your team. There's a lot of exercises out there that you can do, but I will say one of the #1 things people tell me when I start coaching them is, I really don't know what I should give my team. I don't know what I should do to have them work. I feel like I'm barely holding on. I'm doing everything myself. What you need to do is analyze exactly what you do. The free team design worksheet will help you move your activities over to a team member. But there's another really simple exercise you can do, and a lot of you have heard of it. It's the 15-minute exercise. You can just create a sheet of paper that has, starting at 8:15 in the morning, 8:30, 9, 9:15, 9:30, 9:45. Put it down every 15 minutes on the left-hand side, and then create a reminder on your cell phone or on Outlook or whatever you're using as your calendar to pop up every 15 minutes. When that pops up, go to that sheet and write down exactly what you're doing. What have you been doing in those 15 minutes? And I think it's Lone Toolbox always says, green highlight those things that are making you money, that only you can work on. And red highlight those things that are wasting your time and are less than $50 an hour activities. The red sections are those things that you need to find a way to delegate to your staff. The free team design worksheet that we offer with the webinar will help do the same thing, help teach you how to delegate better. Okay? Delegation. A first-time employer struggles the most with delegation. A lot of my people won't write job descriptions. They get a new staff and that person sits at their desk, and meanwhile, my loan officer is running around doing what they do every day instead of knowing exactly what to give that person. So before you hire someone, after you've written the job description, you've done the interviews, you've figured out who you're going to hire, you need to know what they're going to do for the first 3 to 5 days. Is it going to be training? Are you going to show them around the office? Are they going to sit with a processor if they're an assistant? What exactly is it you're going to have them do? Or they can't come in. If they come into your office and you don't have that lined out for them, they're going to take a lot of your time. Analyze what you do now that's low payoff. That would be on that 15-minute exercise, things that are red. And then make a detailed list of how to accomplish these items. It could be, for example, checking with, on the pipeline, is the pipeline updated? Is all the information entered into Encompass or Calyx? Has it all been entered into the database? If those are things that you want to delegate, you need to make a detailed list of how to enter information into the database, how to enter information into your LOS, how to communicate that to the processor. Soon you're going to find that you're going to have a manual for that job. As you continue to add information to that job, the person who's hired there can keep creating pages for that manual. Meet with staff and delegate all the detailed lists to the staff. Those are for people who already have staff that they're maybe not utilizing well enough. If you're about to hire someone, you should have those detailed lists in place. This also goes to any of you who really struggle delegating. A lot of people have learned the hard way that they're sometimes the best person to do everything, okay? If you're having trouble delegating and giving up control, make sure you're creating checklists. So if you want somebody to do something and it requires 10 steps, write the 10 steps out and put little boxes next to them. Then go and communicate and teach that person how to do it, and then make them use the checklist every single time they go through that process. And then you go away. When you come back, you check their checklist. The checklist is a stand-in for you for that task. But it starts to develop trust that that staff member is able to do that job. Without checklists, sometimes it's really hard to delegate and trust. Schedule follow-up to assess the success. You should be meeting with a new staff member once or twice a week at a minimum. I prefer daily, just as a check-in. How are you doing? Do you feel like you have support? That's going to help them feel like they have a leader on the team. Create checklists for every process you delegate and get those checklists into a binder. That binder represents that person's job. If something should happen to that person, all of your effort and time in creating that position is now in a binder. All you have to do is go find another person, and they can just use the same steps you've already created. Now, if you are also somebody who's working with a tough manager, it's a good idea to put the binder together for a staff member and then meet with your manager and show them how you created the job description and the detailed job steps. And then they'll see what you're trying to do to learn to delegate, and that might help keep them kind of out of what you're doing with your team. Again, if you have questions about how to manage a manager, let me know. Next, we want to talk about communication. And depending on the size of your team, you're going to want to communicate a lot at first. Building trust with new team members, both directions, is really important. Not only do you need to know that they're hearing you, but you need to know that you're supporting them so that they don't feel a lack of support and then quit. I think that we were short people in this industry about a year ago, and now there's a lot of people in this industry available to be hired. So if you're building your team, this is a perfect time. People are shifting around in the industry, and they're still in it, but if things get tighter, we're going to lose a lot of people out of this industry that have current experience. So again, this is a really good time to be looking to add to your team. You've got to meet with them regularly, schedule at least once a week a regular meeting, and keep it. The worst thing I've seen people do over the years is have a regular scheduled appointment with their staff and their team and then miss it. They didn't make their team important, they didn't make changes important, and it always came around to bite them. You've got to make the meeting short, quickly address successes and opportunities, maintain control of the communication, and get it done and over with so that they know they always have once a week at least an opportunity to air issues that they're having, that they've got support. I also recommend for my busy teams that have a lot of people on them to have a first quick early morning meeting with the transaction coordinator and or the processor and say, okay, what's going on today? What are you going to be working on? And then they tell you exactly what they're going to be addressing that day, and you tell them what you're working on. The importance of having these meetings, not just so you can keep an eye on them, it's so that they can hear how you think. They hear how you delegate in your brain what's important, and you need your team to start thinking like you so that they can understand how to address issues as you see them. Now, you need to control communication, limit interruptions. If you're going to be having a meeting, tell them, nobody comes in while we're having this meeting. You're not taking any phone calls. We're not dealing with anything outside of this meeting, and keep those meetings short so it doesn't pressure people to have to communicate outside of them. And then create a structure for communication with types and times. If you've got a new transaction coordinator, assistant, or processor, they may be nervous. They might come into your office 15 times a day. They may be sending you 100 emails, which is probably an exaggeration. What you need to do is make sure that you're communicating to them that it's okay if they combine all the information they need from you and maybe send you one morning email with all the questions and one afternoon email. Teach them to communicate the way you want to hear from them, and then tell them the times. If it's obviously somebody who needs to work with you, block out your time first thing in the morning to work on your business, and then make sure that they know you're going to have a quick 5-minute meeting with them at 10 so they still feel supported. If you're continuing to have issues beyond that, please let me know, and I can help you structure some communication types and times for your team. Always encourage success. Nothing more impressed me about my master's in organizational leadership than the fact that a lot of us feel that we're managers, but our team is looking to us to be leaders. And encouraging the team and acknowledging when they're doing well and celebrating successes is something that doesn't come natural in this industry, because we have a closed loan, we fought the good fight, but then we've got another battle coming up right around the corner. Here comes the next army, and we have to get our battle gear back on. What we have to do, and you have to do if you're the leader of a team, you've got to acknowledge when they're doing well. And some people do this naturally, but some people don't do it at all. And you've got to start taking small successes. If you closed a really tough loan, you know what? Go buy flowers. If everybody did great, order in a pizza. If you had an amazing month, take everybody out to a nice dinner with their spouses. It doesn't have to be flowers and candy all the time, but you do have to encourage and acknowledge. That's part of being a leader and not just a boss. So next we want to go over, one thing I want to make a point of. If you're not in control of your calendar, your time, and your communications with your staff, then how can you expect them to take it seriously? This is a really important point. If you're disorganized, your staff is not going to be organized. If you're not communicating well, they're not going to be communicating well. So if you have issues beyond what we're talking about here, call me, let's schedule a strategy session, and let's talk about how to get control of your calendar, your time, and your communication. It's not hard for us to put a really basic plan in together, okay? But if you're trying to build a team without having control over yourself, you're going to struggle. It won't be easy. Next, we want to talk about competition and cooperation. Take the team through steps to create cooperation. Social introductions, fun team building exercises. Whenever you bring somebody new onto a team, there's always going to be the little bit of a battle of this is my territory within the office. When you bring somebody new in, take everybody somewhere where you can have a social introduction to each other, that you can learn about each other outside of that business environment. It's kind of getting to know about the fact that person has kids. They're married. Oh, they'll go to the same church, or they were in the same town or the same high school. That social connection on any team really helps build trust for the tough times. It's also a good idea to create a team charter and a group agreement. Say you have a team of 3 people or you have a team of 10. It's not quite a business plan, but it is more like a vision statement. What do you guys want to have happen? We want to be the most successful team in our company by the end of 2014. And how are we going to do that? We're all going to try to build our business to closing 15 loans a month. Okay, great. How are we going to do that? You're going to be the best processor. You're going to be the best transaction coordinator. I'm going to go out and get more business. And then everybody signs it. And it's a group agreement, which really helps congeal the team. Then you're going to want to do job description reviews. And even if you gave the job description to the new employee, go back over everybody's job description, including your own. And then have an open discussion. Listen to everybody's input. Do you feel like there's something missing? Do you feel like there's something that you should be doing that you're not, or that you're doing that you shouldn't be doing? And then open meetings where everyone is able to express opinions is really important. Obviously, if you have somebody on your team who's negative or who is over-expressing their opinion, you might want to pull them aside and discuss what true group interaction is all about and help them stay focused professionally. But again, if you have trouble with any of those people on your team, get a hold of me. It takes 5 minutes for us to discuss a plan to handle that individual. It's not hard. But they can take over your team meetings pretty easily. Competition and goal confusion. This goes to some of the people who are maybe managers with loan officers under them, and or within a team. Sometimes we have competition issues. Unhealthy competition is created when team members are confused about goals and roles. I had this happen. A gentleman of mine who is in another northern state had a processor, but she wasn't a true processor. She was much more a transaction coordinator. And he hired in another processor and moved her over to transaction coordinator. Well, she got really upset because she felt she was being undermined. She felt something was taken away from her when she was excellent at transaction coordinating, and the detailed closing work a processor needs to do wasn't being handled as well. Well, the communication of this change didn't happen very well. So this person became competitive with the processor. And then there wasn't really clear job descriptions. This is what the transaction coordinator does, and this is what the processor does. So then she felt she was in competition with the processor when actually they're on the same team. So if you don't create very specific goals and role definitions for every team member, then they're going to have a possible competition with each other. You guys have seen, if you're a manager of a team, sometimes a loan officer is competing with the processor to say who's right and who's wrong, instead of both looking at the fact that they need each other for success. So again, socialization of new team members really helps the cohesion of a team. The team charter is going to help. And again, if any of you have worked on a team vision and a team charter are very similar. Just make sure that there's very specific goals written out on that. An us against them branding helps create a healthy external competition without adding to internal. What that means is we're team, Joe, and Team Joe has to beat all the other teams and all the other companies. And we're the best there ever was in Atlanta, and we're Atlanta's best loan officer team, and you start to rally around that brand. It makes the team feel like we're all against them, and we all want to beat them. Did we get another loan from that bank over there? Man, we're fantastic. And you really start to build that. You as the manager and the boss are responsible for that. So if you want a little bit of help with the branding or creating that team identity, it's something that I love to do, and I'm telling you, it is powerful. So next, we want to talk about managing managers. For anybody on here who has somebody over them, and almost all of us have somebody who we answer to, we want to talk about company, team, region, and the growth. If you have company branding and charters and how they work, you need to have clearly defined group goals and charters. That's for you and your team. If you create a team identity underneath another manager, and you create a charter for you and your people, and you have everything spelled out, how do you want numbers for the years? You need to have that written out so your manager sees that you're doing something really well. Every time I do that, the manager above my people is always saying, hey, can we duplicate that in the rest of the company? And you become a leader within your organization, and your team just starts taking off. Now, if you're managing other people, whether it's a company, a team, or a region, you need to look at branding your region. And I'll go back to a gentleman I have in Texas who has his own personal production. He's also a branch manager with 3 offices and a regional manager. So he has a company, a team, and a region. And what we did is we created a brand for the region and a brand for everybody under him. Then we created very specific goals. The whole region had a production goal, and then his branch had a production goal, and then I worked with him and his team, and they had a production goal. And you need to know numbers for the year. Where are you at, and where do you want to go? How many recruits do you want? What would staffing look like if you hired a lot of recruits? What do you need to make changes to operations? And promises they make to the brand. Every single group, the LOs, operations, everybody needs to make promises that they're going to do to meet their goals, and then have everybody sign it. It's a big team group branding project. It's a lot to take on. Again, I hope it's not convoluted on here, but we're really talking about a 30,000-foot view of something that takes about 3 months to plan, organize, write out, and then implement. But when you do that work, the whole team rallies around what you're trying to do. Okay? And then next, we want to talk about team branding. What do you stand for? This is a little bit like my mission statement work and vision statement that I had in my leadership talk a couple of weeks ago. Define on paper what you stand for. Make this clear in bullet points or statements. Name it or brand it. Big, bad, and bodacious. The energy team, the home finders, whatever you want to call it. Then you can call the goal sheet that you give out to the team, the BBB goals. Make it fun. Play around with the ideas of friends, family, trusted coworkers. The team can tie into being the BBB team. That's just an example. It's probably a bad example, but you get the idea. If you want to be the electric team, then it could be the electric goals or the E-goals. Make an award program around the branch. Who's the biggest BBB or electric person? Who's the brightest bulb in the team? Whatever it is, have fun with it. I think weekly awards are too much. I would probably recommend monthly, and or even a giant award ceremony at the end of the year. I have a company that has about 80 employees, and they have an Oscar-type party once a year. And everybody gets an award, but it's often about their personal successes. It's about their personal involvement in the success of the company. And most improved, best referral building, and And boy, they have a lot of fun with it. And there are a lot of characters in that company, but it really makes everybody feel like they're a part of a branded team. And your community should know who you are as well. Very important. Managing managers, you have a charter, now what? We talked a lot in my leadership presentation about really what makes a manager a leader and a boss a leader. How do you lead your team? You have to have a personal touch. You need to connect personally with everybody on your team. You need to have accountability meetings with everybody on your team, even if it's 10 minutes a month. I cannot impress this upon you, how important it is that these people feel like they're heard. If you're managing people, you need to meet with them one-on-one, because if you've got 10 people, not one person sees your charter, your vision, or your sales meetings, or your goals the same. Everybody comes at it from a different view. You, as a manager, have to know all their different views and what inspires them. Those accountability meetings are not just accountable to them. They're accountable to you. That's why they're important, and you cannot blow them off. You have to create timelines for expected improvement. And you have to have attaboys and one-on-one lunches as rewards. Time with you as a leader is powerful, and it has value. So you don't go out with everybody, but when somebody does a good job, you celebrate their success. Celebrating their success is celebrating the team's success. Call people out when they do good things, and then take the time behind the scenes to meet with them and let them know what they're not doing that's favorable, and create a plan with them on how to improve those skills that they need to work on. Again, if you're a managing manager, you want some help, let me know a little bit more about your situation, and I can help you with that. Self-managing in a tough environment, when management does not listen, operations is not doing their job, you're promised things and they're not there, difficult situations daily, and burnout, overwhelm, frustration. I think that these are probably the 5 top things I'm hearing from my loan officers, why they want to leave a company, or if they can't leave a company, here's what they're dealing with. And it really is about creating a way to overcome all of these situations. If management doesn't listen, what is it you're telling them, and how are you telling them? If operations is not doing their job, who's accountable for operations? Do you have anything you could do? Are you doing your job as good as you can and as completely as possible prior to handing things over to operations? Are you promised things and they're not there? You need to consider whether you're with the right company or not. In this changing environment, you've got to position yourself to be successful. If you're in difficult situations daily and you're getting burnt out, are you creating balance in your life? Everybody's going to get burnt out in this business. I don't care who you are, unless you're some masochist who just thrives on punishing circumstances, and I've met a couple of those. You've got to create opportunity to shut down and walk away. I think Tony Robbins is the best at helping overcome burnout and difficult situations when he says, are you breaking the synapses? Are you getting out of your chair, standing up, jumping up and down, and yelling yes? Those kinds of things are what you have to do when you're facing difficult situations daily. You've got to get up, go outside, breathe in deep, take in the birds, go get a cup of coffee, break up your day, and then come back. Find ways to motivate yourself. Get Jeffrey Gitomer's little gold book of Yes Attitude. Wonderful book to just go through and remotivate yourself. If you're truly burnt out and you can't handle the difficult situations, is this an industry for you? I've coached about 3 people out of this industry in the last 2 years. They just didn't want to be in it anymore. And if you're overwhelmed and frustrated, you need to break down what is frustrating you and overwhelming you and start creating solutions for those things if you're not going to leave the business. And again, this all goes back to getting a coach, having a free strategy session with any one of us, and let's talk about what's overwhelming you and are there solutions for that. And sometimes just seeing it on paper can make you breathe a lot better. Okay? If management doesn't listen, you have choices. Create a list of the issues, schedule a meeting with everyone concerned, create timelines to see change, find an advocate if you can, and look for another company. Really, these are your choices. Write them down if these things are what's bothering you. I've had a lot of people who never even tried to talk to upper management when they were having problems. As soon as we created a timeline to see the changes, communicated, we saw changes. They never went about it systematically. So try to fix the problems you can, and if you can't get them fixed, another company might be the best choice. Operations is not doing their job. It's a very tough situation. Again, ensure you're doing everything correct up front. Meet with the ops staff if you can. A lot of times there's a disconnect between operations and sales, and operations feels like they're taken advantage of. They may have bad behaviors or belief systems. Sometimes just showing up and saying, you know, I want to help you any way I can, and really trying to connect with that person more than one time lets them start to trust you, and you will see things get better. If you never try to do that, you may never see them get better. If that person, after 3 or 4 attempts, isn't opening up to you or responding at all, see if you can meet with their manager and either get to a different person, or if you can eliminate some of the communication and just do your best job. Loan processes often help a lot with communication with the ops staff, so they see how much you're doing before you give them the loan file, and they see how much you're doing after. So they can see all the touches you have, and they understand that their job is this portion of it. They get a bigger picture than just what they do. I also have a lot of people who create reward systems for their processors. Now, a processor often feels like they manage the world in a perfect environment. They live inside a box, and anything outside of that box isn't important to them, and it's really not important to anything. So when we can acknowledge what they do inside that box really well, for example, maybe they got some conditions filled for you. They made a call that they didn't need to do. You know what? You go and you buy a muffin or a little gift card or just a card that says thank you, and write it in there and bring it to them and say, you went above and beyond and you did your job really well, and I so appreciate it. It makes my job easier. It's so rewarding for them to hear that from you because they don't hear it from many people. So think about a little reward system for that processor. It helps build trust and communication. So now it's time for any questions. I know that got a few people on the call. Some of these questions might be really complicated, and you may want to send them to me separately. But I want to just take a second. If anybody has anything they want to ask, you can type it in the little chat section over here on the right. I haven't seen any questions, so I'm assuming I don't have any.
While they're doing that, there actually were 1 or 2 that came through. I think somebody tagged me privately, but by the way, guys, so as people are posting questions, let me give you a couple of questions that I saw come across, Stephanie. First one is, and it kind of goes back to that last point you were talking about when you don't directly manage your support staff. The processor reports to somebody other than you. A lot of originators on the call, I'm sure, in this environment where you work for a branch and your branch manager runs the operations team, and in a lot of these environments, the branch manager, the processors kind of cater to the producing branch manager. So what do you do with the kind of the closed-minded, know-it-all processor that you don't directly manage? What suggestions would you have for an originator who's in that type of environment?
Well, I think it goes back to the slide that I had where you really have to make sure you're doing everything you need to do. If this is somebody that you can't talk to, just ensure that you're doing all the things that you're supposed to do. Because I have people complain about operations and complain about staff that's outside of their control. But when we really look at how well they're completing their files and submitting them, sometimes there's definitely room for improvement. A staff that's off-site that you have no contact with, I can go back to the reward system. I can go back to you checking in with them and requesting once-a-week meetings and say, whenever you're trying to reach out to somebody who didn't ask to be reached out to, you can contact them and say, I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to support you. Do you mind if we have a 5-minute meeting once a week so I can find out anything you need from me and I can tell you what I'm trying to do to make your job better? See, that whole statement was about them. So if I've never found somebody that says no. Most of the processors understand there is communication that needs to happen. So they will say, yeah, sure, I'll meet with you for 5 minutes. On the 5-minute call, say, you know what, I'm trying to do everything I can to submit a complete file. Have you seen anything missing? And really make it about trying to improve yourself. While that's happening, they're starting to trust that you actually want to improve. Because a lot of them think that all loan officers are just terrible people who throw junk at the wall and hope something sticks. They really think that way. So when you start to open yourself up to them via the phone, then you find opportunities to help them. If you've had a really great month, even if they're not near you, you can send them a thank you card with a box of chocolates or something. It really is about appreciating that person. If you make those attempts and nothing happens, because again, I know there's a lot of bottlenecks, there's a lot of really burnt out processors, there's a lot of people who have the belief system that they're just underappreciated and they're never going to feel better about it. You can't change some people. But if those are some things that I think you could do off-site that may help improve the relationship, and it's worked for my clients.
Awesome, awesome. Well, guys, keep posting those questions in. Even if we don't have time to get through all of them here in today's forum, we will make sure that our coaching team, Stephanie and myself and the rest of the coaching team, get those questions answered and responded to quickly and effectively. There's one more that came through here that I just wanted to hit on really quickly. Earlier in the call, you were talking about, Stephanie, becoming an encourager. I think a lot of it has to do with personality profiles. Some of us are just not that natural. Loan officers typically tend to be fairly high achievers. We're the kind of people that just the satisfaction of having accomplished the job and being able to check off, we did that one additional loan and move on, is kind of the people that we are, and that's enough personal gratification for ourselves. But if we're not that natural encourager, if that's something we struggle with, and we need to become that, we need to be a better encourager to the support staff that we work with, what resources do you recommend for clients to help them improve their leadership and inspiration skills, I guess, if you want to put it that way?
Okay, I've met several people who said, I just don't see the world that way. I don't need to send people cards or anything like that. And those are traditionally your high D people who probably want more encouragement themselves. If you're not a natural encourager, and that's why I wanted you all to take notes, because we're looking at, some of the steps I'm trying to give you are maybe not natural ways for you to see things. Like creating a reward, program for your processing team. That's probably not something any of you think about. They get paid or they get bonus. That's all they deserve. But if you want to change your relationship with those people who can impact your business, you've got to start thinking about what you need to do differently. How do you need to change? And if you're somebody who's not naturally an encourager, that's why I gave some specifics. If you know that your team or your processor did a really good job on one file and really got something closed that was really tough, go buy a thank you card. And it doesn't need to be flowery. You don't need to write a thesis. It just needs to say, thank you. You did such a great job. I really appreciate you. Even if it's not natural, do it anyways. I'm not going to say that there's any tips or tricks out there to automatically make you an encouraging leader, but acknowledging that something needs to change in your business may encourage you to look around and say, I need to better appreciate the people on my team so that I can be a leader to them.
Well, and Stephanie, this is something I know you do a lot with your clients. You focus on simple daily disciplines frequently, and I've heard you talk to clients about, creating a habit of encouraging. So set a goal each day to send 2 encouraging reminder cards or note cards to team members, would be something that would also help build your skill and habit in that particular area as well. All right, one last question I want to jump into talks a little bit about the branding question. You work for a company, the question was posted in the Q&A, you can probably read it too, Stephanie. Working for a company as a broker originator, having your own DBA, what would be the best way to brand your team while complying with broker of record? What will be the best way to make a business card, et cetera? Maybe one of those detailed questions that you want to have directly with Coach Stephanie here, but can you give any quick insight to how to begin the process of creating a brand?
Okay, yeah, and I was looking on the chat for it. So you're saying if you already work under somebody, how do you create a brand for just you and your team, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's very, very simple. Whether your team is just you and an assistant or you and a processor who you have a lot of control over, it's all about just figuring out what you want your message to be. What is your brand? What is your name? I mean, I have people come up with some really fun names. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head my team from Texas. It could be we're the Dream Seekers team. I'll go back to that. That's kind of a goofy name. But maybe you guys decide that you're all about helping people fulfill dreams, and you name yourself the Dream Seekers team. You and your assistant by yourselves can become that. You can, if your boss says, no, company charter, we can't do any of that. You can do an intro letter for your team that says, we're the Dream Seekers team. We're all about helping people seek the dream of home ownership. We love working with our clients. You put the passion into the intro paragraph. Your company's not going to get mad that you're calling yourself that. You put your information up there with a picture, put your assistant's information up there with a picture, what both of you are expected to do, and you send that out to every single new client you meet. Then when you go around and you meet new realtors, I've got people taking iPads around and showing their realtors how they can help manage their leads. On there, they've got the name of the title of their team. You can get little T-shirts and buttons and pins made up for you and your team that you wear around the office, little signs that are on your desk. You don't have to go outside of the office, so your company can't say you're branding yourself outside of the company name. What you're doing is you're creating that team feeling within your team, and that's the power. It's not even so much that you're making that message go out past you. If you can't do that, make it powerful within your team. When you meet somebody, say, hey, we're the Dream Seekers. Susie and I, we're going to make it happen. And then it starts to take on a life of its own. I hope that helps.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think that's about all the time we have for questions. Stephanie, I know you had a couple of special offers for our audience today and some suggestions for how to take these ideas and implement them. Let's go ahead and spend just the last couple of minutes here in that direction. By the way, guys, if you do think of additional questions as Stephanie's wrapping up here, feel free to go ahead and post them in the Q&A. We will make sure that our team follows this along. I apologize, Stephanie. I think I might have accidentally advanced the slide on you here a little faster than we intended to. But why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about how to, if they want more information about what we do and how we can help provide faster growth for people.
Okay. Well, one of the things I like to tell people is whether they go with maximum acceleration or not, all the things we're talking about in all of our webinars are critical for you to stay successful in the business. So keep in mind the benefits of a coach are the benefits that you can get from an accountability partner, team up with somebody in your office. You need to have somebody who is dedicated to your success, and sometimes that requires you to go outside of your sphere of influence and hire somebody who can help hold you accountable and change your behaviors and help you take things to the next level. A coach helps have a plan and helps you stick to it. Trust me, I tell people don't hire us as coaches unless you're ready to work really hard, and a coach is someone who's dedicated to your success. We have one-on-one focused meetings every week. We customize everything to your needs. We aren't selling you a product or a program. For example, I have a client who hired me. They need a database. We're out looking at about 25 different databases and trying to find the right one for them, because we here at Maximum Acceleration don't sell you a product. We are your coach for your success. And then find out what the difference is for you and try a strategy session with one of us. They're free. Can't hurt to find out what we have to offer. Brigham Young University research all the way down to the bottom. You can want to do things to make changes in your life, but until you make a plan and create a specific time that you share that progress with somebody who's committed to you, you have a 95% chance of that change happening. And so I did tell everybody about the team design workshop, worksheet, I'm sorry. If you want a copy of that to use for you and your team, please just get a hold of me and I'll send it out to you. It's a real simple document. Nothing I have is like 10 pages long. All the stuff I provide you to use, even from the strategy sessions, are really simple tools you can get using immediately. So that's it. I think a lot of you understand what coaching is all about. Our next upcoming webinar is going to be Tuesday, July 30th. Obviously, Eric Janesco, our head coach, who you've been hearing on this call, is going to be doing how to double your income with more purchase business. And thank you guys so much for your time today. I look forward to hearing from you. And Eric, that's it. Take it away.
All right. Well, Stephanie, one last thing I wanted to mention, guys. You've heard some great ideas and concepts off today's program. The best way to find out what the value of coaching could mean for you is to actually experience it. As Stephanie mentioned, we're available to take on a one-on-one coaching session, let you actually experience the power of coaching and then make decisions on how to proceed with engaging a coach if that's something you're interested in. Like I said, at the end of the day, you'll have invested an hour of your time and walk away with a complete action plan that'll put these ideas and concepts into play. By the way, they don't have to be just used on the concepts that have been shared in today's webinar program. It could be about anything that you're struggling with in growing your business. What's your single biggest challenge that if you fix that one issue would give you the most significant lift in your business? And that's what that strategy session is really all about. If you'd like to take advantage of those strategy sessions, there's no cost or obligation for them. Simply the best and easiest way we've found to help you understand the true value of it. So if you want to go ahead and take advantage of one of those sessions, you can either contact Stephanie directly, as she indicated earlier, or you're welcome to go ahead and post in the Q&A section here in the webinar platform directly the best phone number and email address for a scheduling team to be able to get a hold of you and get one of those sessions booked. We obviously only have a handful of those available each week because it is the time of one of our professional coaches. All of our coaches are pretty close to maximum capacity right now, so they are filled on a first-come, first-served basis, and some people are going to be looking at probably waiting a little over a week for those sessions, but we definitely want to be here to help you and support you in anything you want to do. The last thing I wanted to share with all of you before we wrap the final actions on today's webinar, we wouldn't be doing our job as a coach if we didn't help you create an action plan. So what I want you to do is to spend the next 2 to 3 minutes here with me before you jump into your next phone call, before you read your next email. Take these 2 minutes to create your own personal action plan with the ideas that you've taken from today's webinar. At the end of the day, ideas without action are worthless. They have no impact on your business unless you implement those ideas. So here's 3 simple steps you can use. So 1, what was the most valuable thing you heard in today's program? Pick the one. You'll have access to the recording later. You can go back and pick up other ideas along the way. Obviously, you've been exposed to a number of great ideas in today's program. Secondly is decide what action you need to take right now to be able to implement that one idea in your daily business. Maybe it's setting that reminder on your calendar to pop up a couple of times a day to remind you to create a note of congratulation or encouragement to somebody on your team. Maybe it is sitting down and starting the 3-day time tracker study that, logging your time every 15 minutes. Whatever that action is to identify what your next step needs to be with implementing these ideas and systems, make that decision now. Third is put a target deadline on it. By when do you want to have that action completed? And then, of course, watch for the email with the tools. As I mentioned, the recording of today's program will be forwarded out. It will take approximately 24 to 48 hours to finish that video and get it emailed out to you. There's about 6 to 8 man-hours of back-end work that has to be done to format and render the video properly so that it will play on YouTube, and then we'll be sending out an email to all the registrants. But otherwise, make sure you engage the team. If there's anything else myself or the rest of the coaching team here, including Coach Stephanie, can do to help and support you in the growth of your business, that's our only goal. It's getting you from where you are to where you want to be faster. So anything we can do to help you and support you in that role, please don't hesitate to ask. Otherwise, we want to thank you all for investing in time and congratulate you for being the few in the industry who take the time to work on your skills development and improve your practice. And we look forward to seeing the kind of growth results that you'll achieve in the coming weeks, months, and years. That being said, we'll